All right, good evening. Good evening. So, I hope everybody's doing well. Tonight, we're going to talk about bystanders and witnesses. And there is a huge myth about bystanders, right? That they stay silent as a result of fear or being afraid. And the reason I think that's a myth, because it's not true. I think the idea and the blanket of fear, or the idea that people are scared and that's why they aren't intervening, is a cop out, to be frank with you. And the reason it's a cop out is because lots of times, again, depending on how long people have been there, if you're a new person coming in and you're the new recipient or the person who's receiving the bullying, often bystanders who are there watching what's happening to you and staying silent have previously been victimized. Okay, and they've just rolled over when you got there, and you again didn't realize that you had signed on the dotted line that they were looking for a new person to bully. So again, so sometimes those roles, if you know my work, I talk about the changing roles in bully culture, going from recipient to bystander to recipient, and even recipient to bully, okay, depending on how long you've been in the environment. So the idea that they're scared and they don't want to be victimized, it just doesn't pass the smell test, because a lot of times they may have been victimized already. And they're not neutral. I know myself, I knew that things were off in one of these workplaces that I was getting into because people had told me about it. I had talked to somebody previously who had worked there. And so I knew there was, stuff going on. I didn't know it was called workplace bullying. But I thought I could come into that environment and be neutral. There's no such thing as a neutral bystander or onlooker. There's no neutrality in workplace bullying. You're immediately socialized into that dysfunction, that bully culture, and you pick a side. And if you choose the wrong side, well, then you know what happens. And so there's no neutrality. So silence is complicity, meaning that you're giving the green light for the bully to do whatever it is that they want. And oftentimes it's not silence just because, it's silence because they're showing loyalty to the bully, hoping to get rewards later on. So if I don't say anything while you're being bullied, I'm hoping that the bully notices that, and then when it comes time for a promotion or a salary increase or an extra day off or a lighter caseload, then that's what I'm hoping I'm getting. So what bystanders are doing is playing the long game. What can I get from the person who has the most power in the workplace? And that happens to be the bully. They want favoritism at your expense. Okay. Now, yes, maybe there are people who don't know what to do, but in this day and age, if you have access to a computer, you can Google it and figure out a few things that you can do. So I don't buy that excuse either, is that they don't know what to do, because you can do something and that's better than nothing. Okay? And so there's no neutrality. They're not doing it out of fear. They're doing it out of favor and hoping to get something in the long run. Okay? It's a choice. You're in the workplace, when you're remaining silent, that's making a choice to do something or not to do something. Okay? And so bystanders are part of the problem. And yes, they can also be part of the solution. But when people sit there and watch those things happening and don't say anything, then what they're saying is this kind of behavior, this workplace of abuse, which is, belittling or however it's happening to you, swearing, gaslighting, is acceptable. And the other thing that bystanders do, again, because they're not neutral, they're making a choice to either say something or not say something. And they're also making a choice often to engage in bullying against you. So if, your bully, whatever you call them, I'm calling them Bob, right? Bob is your bully, and Bob is bullying you. Bystanders often jump on the bandwagon to ratchet up the bullying against you. Again, the reason they're doing that is to gain favor with Bob, the bully who happens to be in charge. And the other thing they do too, let's say they don't bully, right? But they will cover the bullies, you know what, right? Because they'll tell the story where you're the one who did it and the bully comes out smelling like a rose, okay? And so and that's part of gaslighting. Okay, that's part of gaslighting. And so they'll support the bully story, and that, which again, when they're telling lies about what actually happens, yes, they're supporting Bob the bully, but the alternative to that is they're also discrediting you for telling about and reporting and talking about the bullying, and that's discrediting you. So you look like you're the problem. You look like you're the troublemaker. You look like you're irrational. And the bully and the bystanders come out, again, on this side, looking so much better and more empowered and so much more professional, even though that couldn't be further from the truth. Okay, so bystanders have all these things that they do in order to elevate themselves in these workplaces. Okay, and so it's very, very problematic, again, because they're looking down the road to see what they can get from Bob. They're not really loyal to the bully. They're using Bob just as much as Bob is using them to get whatever it is that they feel like they want and need out of that workplace. Okay, the other thing that happens with bystanders, and this is important, this is why they're not coming to your rescue, is that when Bob is out there gaslighting and saying things about you behind your back, like, you're a troublemaker, you guys, you never get your work done on time, or they're complaining to your boss that, you're coming in late, and then you're doing this, and you're doing this, and you're doing that, all things that are most likely to be 100% false. Bob's out there spinning the lies and creating this web of uncertainty, again, gaslighting people into these false narratives. And what ends up happening is bystanders hear those over and over and over and over and over and over again from Bob. And Bob points out things in the workplace that show that his narrative about you is true, right? So maybe you had a flat tire and you end up coming in late one day. Bob's right there by the door telling this bystander over here, look, I told you, Jan's always late. And then the bystander says, yeah, she is always late. So they're finding, Bob's pointing out information to show the bystander that his false narrative is true, and then the bystander ends up getting my side bias or confirmation bias, and then they end up finding things in the workplace that confirm the exact same thing about you that Bob is saying. And so many of the bystanders who aren't going to say anything, aren't going to come to your rescue, is because they think you are the problem. And when they think you are the problem, then you deserve to be mistreated in the workplace. You deserve to be bullied. You deserve to be, humiliated and criticized. And they're not coming to your rescue because you are the problem, not them, not their complacency or their silence or Bob's. And Bob is the problem, right? But then they're all stacked up against you. And so that's why bystanders They get off the hook because most experts don't talk about bystanders in the exact way that I do. They're part of the problem, okay? And in order to stop workplace bullying, it's first off, it's not your responsibility to stop workplace abuse. It's your supervisors, and Bob needs to be held accountable because Bob is the problem. But also, even if you take Bob out of a bully culture, okay, let's just say Bob gets a better promotion or leaves or retires or whatever, and Bob cycles out of that bully culture, you will still have bullying because one of those bystanders will roll over into that new position of power by taking on the role of Bob. And so, in order to stop bully culture, you have to have systematic and comprehensive interventions. Okay? And now I know what you're saying. I know what you're thinking. Well, good Lord, Jan, that's never going to happen. Right. It probably won't happen because we still think of bullying as an interpersonal conflict between you and the bully, right? It's not an organizational issue between the bully and everyone else. It's your problem with Bob, okay? Because you're the one who then is responsible for fixing it. Okay, so if you look again at what people are saying about how to solve and fix bullying, I'm sorry, friend, if you're the one being bullied, it all lies at your feet. Right? So you have to report. You have to document. You have to report. And you have to document. That's essentially what people are telling you that you have to do, right? What they're not telling you is that because these bystanders are behind the scenes, they're backing up Bob's stories. They're not backing your story up. They are, and they think you're the problem and you deserve it. So when you make a report to HR or to your supervisor, right? And if your HR person and your supervisor are doing their job, they should investigate, right? And what that means is talk to people, right? Figure out why people might be lying. Don't don't believe everything you hear, okay? Find factual evidence in the work environment to confirm what is being said or that disprove what is being said, okay? And figure things out. Use some critical thinking and be objective, right? Because if you're a supervisor or HR, you've been suckered by Bob too. You're part of the problem, just like bystanders. But we're not talking about you tonight, right? So what they're not telling you is that everybody believes you're the problem. That's likely to include HR and your supervisor. So when you make the report, it's not helping you stop bullying. It's helping them confirm that you're the problem. Right? So you're left in this no-win situation. Do I stay in this situation where I am being beat up and abused at work, or do I leave? Right? Because the reality is, again, here's another unspoken truth. The bully wants you out, and that means they're going to try to get you fired or push you out. It doesn't mean they're going to stop bullying. It just means they want fresh blood when it comes to bullying. Okay? Maximum harm, where they're getting their enjoyment, is forcing you out or getting you fired. Okay? So what can you do? Right? And so then you get into these repeated cycles where you document and report, retaliation, document and report, retaliation, right? Sometimes your best option is to think about leaving, right? That's the reality. However, if you're in nursing, education, if you're a lawyer, right, or mental health, all these other positions or career paths, the likelihood, if you're a nurse, that you're going to end up in one bully situation after another is damn near 100%. So what do? Do you then change your career? Well, what you can do, and again, people don't like to hear this, is because what also happens if you're the one being bullied, you get into those patterns too of how you respond to the bully. Again, according to most experts, is to say things like this. Well, Bob, you're interrupting me, and that's not professional, and I don't like it. Okay? Yeah, and Bob, in those situations, if you say those things to Bob, which is generally the recommendation by most experts, is this: more bullying. Bob's going to get into your face. Maybe he does stop interrupting, but then he just gives the high five or the wink to the bystander who over there, who's on his side, who does the same damn thing. And then Bob can say, hey, it wasn't me, it was that guy, right? Okay? So again, how you frame things. If you frame things, how what I want to say is this, is that it matters what you do and how you say it. And so if you want to reduce the traumatic effects of bully, if you want to de-escalate bully, if you want to be able to pull the wind out of Bob's sails, then you have to learn how to change how you're responding to Bob. Which means, instead of saying, I don't like you to interrupt me, that's unprofessional, right? You're making it about you. You have different ways to respond. And you say things like, you use the broken record method, right? Maybe you say Bob is trying to gaslight you. You say the same thing over and over and over and over. You get used to tuning out the noise and only focus on business, right? Where Bob's trying to say, well, you came in late, and then remember in 1942 when you did this, and adding in all these details to try to muddy the water. You have to keen in on the details that matter and block out the noise and use the broken record method. Bob, I think we're here, and I, again, appreciate your enthusiasm. We are here talking about ABC. Thank you, Bob. We're still focused on ABC, right? You have to combat bullying with techniques that work. And that's why, again, they want to hurt you. And when you say things like, well, this is unprofessional and I can't get a word in, that's the point of interrupting you. So you can't get a word in. They don't need you to point it out. But if you connect that interruption with your inability to give the report that everybody needs to do their next step in their business and in their job, and you connect it to the organization, you have a better chance of people seeing the problem as a systematic problem, which it is, versus a you problem, which it isn't. Okay? And look, I get it. I was you for a very long time. And you have to be willing to make changes in how you talk to bystanders, because that's what we're talking about, right? I'm going to tell you what, that when I was being bullied, the things that the bully did hurt me. The things that the people who were not considered the primary bully against me hurt me more, right? The people that I sort of liked and had some, kind of trusted, when they came slicing after me with their knife, then I was more upset and hurt by that, okay? But how I responded to them was the same way I responded to Bob, right? You have to not respond to bystanders and say, gosh, why are you just like shrinking? Are you a shrinking violet? You're not saying anything. They're not going to say anything, right? You have to give them a reason to stand up or to say something. Part of that is getting them to see you the way you are, not the way Bob wants you to be seen, right? If you're the troublemaker and you're always pointing out that they're not saying anything, you're confirming that Bob is right, right? So you have to spend time building relationships about things that have nothing to do with work, right? Try to connect with, do you like coffee? What kind of music do you like? Do you have kids? Things like that. How about the weather, right? I mean, we can all talk, we're all affected by the weather. That is a neutral semi-neutral thing to have a conversation about. You have to get them to see you for who you are, not for who Bob is making you out to be. Okay? That's hard work. Especially when people are sitting there watching you be abused. I get that, right? I've been there. I get it. But bystanders have power. And when they see you for being a good worker, one who's being abused, not for somebody who's part of the problem, they're more likely to to intervene. And the other thing, I would, if I was do if I had to go back and talk to a bystander today with what I know about workplace bullying now, what I would do is I would tell them exactly what I wanted them to do, right? I wouldn't trust that they would speak up, right? I would say, hey, when Bob comes after me about this report, turning in our reports, I would really appreciate it if you would back me on that, because you know that the reports are due not at 5 p.m., they're due at 7 p.m. So could you just pipe in so that, Bob knows that I don't have to turn my reports in at 5 p.m., it's 7 p.m., and you could just chime in. That would really be helpful. Hey, can I buy you a coffee? Right? And so you have to build those relationships up and tell them exactly what you would like them to do. Okay? And at the very minimum, you could ask people to document what they see. Bob never has to know that those things are going on. So once you have developed a little bit more of a relationship, again, you're trying to unite a team where there's only an I, not a we. You're trying to get that bystander to not see you as an I. You want them to see you as a we, because you also want to connect what Bob is doing to them. So you might say something like to the bystander and say something like this, I don't know about you, but Bob is frustrating me. Yeah. And it would be really great. Wouldn't it be great if we could get out of those meetings in 30 minutes like we're supposed to versus 2 hours? Because then we'd have time to do X, Y, and Z. What do you think? How do you think we could get the meeting to stay on topic or on track? Right? And one of the ways they can do that is when having Bob not interrupt you and let you give your presentation, right? So always connect the action you want. You want them to intervene on your behalf in a meeting, connect that and give them a reason and a benefit for doing it, okay? And be specific about what you'd want them to do, because maybe they don't know what to do, but you know what you need from them, right? And you have to spend time cultivating those relationships. You have to spend time cultivating those relationships, because that's exactly what Bob is doing behind your back. Okay? And so it's important that you do those things if you're going to stay in those work environments and in those career paths that are inundated with workplace abuse. Okay? And so it's difficult. These are hard things, right? It's hard for us, especially when we're the ones who are being abused, to take a look at what more we can do in the workplace that's not supporting us to make our workplace better. But that's the kind of people you are. You want your workplace to be better. You want this stuff to stop. You don't want to leave that workplace environment and then have somebody else cycle in and take your position. And so we have to do things differently. And I get that that's problematic. And I think I'm the only one saying it. And that's why people aren't. People may not be getting it. But if we want things to change, because workplace bullying is not an interpersonal conflict between you and that bully, between me and Bob, it's an organizational issue. We have to be willing to do some things that might start and trigger change in a different way. And again, because again, we're not responsible for starting bullying, we're not responsible for fixing it. But right now, you are probably just like I was. I had no one in the workplace who was looking after me. Okay, and I have a lot of great ideas about things that you can do um, in order to reduce those traumatic effects from workplace bullying, and also how you might build collective partnerships with bystanders and other people in your workplace to maybe not end workplace bullying, but certainly reduce the traumatic effects for you. All right, so that is everything tonight. Let me know if you have any questions. Again, drop me a comment if you have bystanders who watched you be bullied, or if you have bystanders who've actually done stuff. There are good people out there who do stand up. Let me know about those too. And also, just I would love it if you'd subscribe or give me a like or a thumbs up or anything like that. And again, if you need information, I highly recommend that you go to stopbullyculture.com for resources and other things that talk about workplace bullying in a more expansive way, rather than just looking at workplace bullying as an interpersonal conflict issue. So I wish you the best. I hope you are staying strong in the workplace. I hope you find something to laugh about and smile about today, because you deserve that.